like we should all take a collective deep breath after that.
Ready? To the count of 3.
Yes.
Very good.
I had wondered yesterday, I sent to my friend Mary Lou Falcone, who was here, I said, I think it's going to be very difficult for the people who are coming here this evening who have Lewy body dementia and for their families to watch this film. And she said, we need to bear witness. And we're better to do that in a loving, supporting environment like this. And I agree. So it feels that way to me. So thank you for all being here. We're going to spend some time and give the audience time to ask some questions. And I thought I would just ask Susan and Tylor 1 or 2. And basically, Susan, I know that you didn't want to speak too much to mass media at the beginning and to share your story, but what made you want to get involved in this film with Tylor?
Well, as it covered in the film, it was, and I think pretty much everyone knows, in the beginning, it would have been really hard to get a word out. And as I said, it took a while to get to the bottom of what really happened. And this, as I started to learn more when I dug into what this disease is about and started correlating the science behind the symptoms of what we experienced, what I was uncovering felt so incredibly important. You know, Robin was not the only person who had this. There are 1.4 million people in the United States, and that's a very conservative number because of the lack of diagnosis. So it felt incredibly important, and there were a lot of things happening at the time because of the misinformation, which there were a lot of creative headlines and ideas about this as people were going through their own sort of trying to grieve and grapple with what the perception was. So it just felt like really my mission, like our mission, like it was something Robin and I had to do. There was some reason that this happened and that it happened to us. And then pretty soon, our paths crossed. Tylor lives like 15 minutes from us, and I had actually come across Tylor's work while Robin was alive, and it's kind of a long story, but it really boils down. If it wasn't my mom having a horrible habit of cutting out articles and making me read them, we wouldn't all be here right now. Thanks, Mom. It's really that simple. In the article, it mentioned a framer that she thought I, might enjoy using for my work, and someone had done a documentary on that framer, and that it was a 20-minute short called Naples Yellow, done by Tylor Norwood, and it was a beautiful film. I thought, well, I'll just look at the film, and I looked it up and I showed it. I thought it was incredible, and I showed it to Rob, and I said, you got to see this. This is an amazing piece. It's about an artist, a pigment maker, and a framer, and it's 20 minutes, and it's beautiful. And Robin loved it. And so time went on as I learned more about this disease and this process. My framer, who is now my framer from the article from my mom, said, you really should sit down with Tylor, and this story needs to be told. And again, that's why we're all here. So,
thank you, Susan. Tylor, I'd love to give you a chance to talk about how the film came together, or any particular parts you would love to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Susan covered it, definitely. Like, that's how it came together. She called me. The thing that I think was really interesting is the path that she was on in terms of discovery, and I think what Stanley said so well in the film is people deal with grief in different ways. And that energy has to go somewhere, and I know that for a lot of people it's tough to not kind of implode underneath the weight of what somebody might go through in Susan's situation. But she was able to do a lot of positive with it, discover all these things, share what she learned, and found a way to channel all this into something really beautiful. And so when she'd reached out to me, she said, let's talk about the science, let's get really deep on sort of the mechanics of what this thing is and spread. And the thing that it really stuck with me was Susan, it's going to be 3 years from the moment we're having this conversation until we're sitting in a room like this. What's going to sustain you through that? Because science isn't going to do it. And she started telling me the stories about what her and Robin went through. And that I was all on board for. And so I said, look, I can't commit to anything because, again, I have to go there. And so I said, let's sit down and let's do 9 hours of interview. Tell me everything you want to tell me, just me and you. And then we'll make a decision about whether we want to go forward with this. You too, right? Maybe you don't like me. And we did that time, and I fell in love with Robin and Susan. Just as, Susan's sitting up here today as a person in the film, but for me, she really is kind of the star witness to this thing that almost nobody knew about because of kind of the sloppy journalism that had been done around when Robin passed. So it was like that was someone I could build a case around, and I was, you kind of be a good judge of character when you're a filmmaker and a journalist, and like I trusted her. She was so genuine. She's so open about some things that are really, she goes everywhere that you want to go. She has that strength about her, which is, endlessly exciting to me that there's people like Susan who can do that. I couldn't do that. And so that started our journey. And then we started adding people who were in Robin's life in really meaningful ways. And the thing that I thought would be really powerful is to give somebody an experience of intimacy, of what would it be like if you really knew Robin, if you really were able to sit with him and understand what he'd gone through. And would that erase the bad journalism? And so we'll see. But that was the thing I set out to do.
Thank you, Tylor. It's such a powerful film, and I'm sure a lot of people have questions, so I'd rather take them from the audience than me ask others. So please raise your hand if you have questions. Yes. Denise is coming with the microphone.
I'm sorry, it's a wonderful movie, wonderful. There was one question continually on my mind, which is you had all these testings going on, and what was the missing link? Why wasn't it diagnosed?
So Lewy body disease is incredibly difficult to diagnose, as I learned once I got into the science. And I realized that Robin and I didn't get the worst care, and we didn't get the best. It's very typical not to get a diagnosis because this disease, it's invisible right now. There is no biomarker. When you saw the scans in the film of Robin's brain from the MRI, I was able to go through that about a year afterwards and look through. And if anyone's aware, MRIs are pretty thorough. There's every section, every angle. Nowhere could we see on any of those slides Lewy body dementia, because we don't have the capability yet. But it was the invisible terrorist that had taken over nearly every region of his brain and brainstem, but we couldn't see it. We didn't have the technology yet. These are things that the scientists are working on now, and there's a lot of progress being made. So with Lewy body dementia, in a way you could say that the Parkinson's was the end of the disease for him. It wasn't the beginning, okay? Because in Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia, they have the same essential underlying shared biology, and that is the Lewy bodies themselves, which is a normal protein called alpha-synuclein that's become misfolded and starts creating traffic jams, and neurons start dying. And so this is a question I used to get a lot. Well, did he have Parkinson's? Well, yes, he did. That was an accurate diagnosis. That's easier to diagnose from visual because it's the clinical manifestations, the shuffling gait, the tremors, the stooped posture, the frozen stance that we talked about. And the Lewy body dementia has over 40 symptoms. And a lot of those, as Dr. Miller talked about so well, is they appear to be what we think is psychiatric or behavioral, but they're based in the fact that his neurons are dying. And so this issue is something that I think many people who are touched by this disease and diseases like it are really frustrated with, because it's not like you have a tumor and you can say, that's the culprit. And then your neighbors will understand, your children will understand, people will understand, it's a tumor. That's what's making them do that. This is the same thing.
Maybe it was just my problem. The brain, we kept seeing this picture of the brain, and we see these little black things all over it. So we thought, those are Lewy bodies, or that's a sign of it. But
Yeah, so what they did is a particular type of scan on postmortem brain slides that reveal it, but you have to be able to remove the brain to see it.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Which
so
is
yeah, so in
tough.
other words, it's only an autopsy. Yes, great question. By the way, I could talk about science all night.
Yeah.
I'm just warning you.
I want to mention also that Dr. Susan Bresman was supposed to be with us today. She had an emergency in her family. She probably could have answered that question even better than we can, although I think they did a terrific job. But I just wanted to mention that. Who else has a question?
Just by the mobility
So
testing.
your example, thank you for that. In your example, what you went through is quite common, where this disease is commonly misdiagnosed as Alzheimer's, or it's misdiagnosed or switched diagnosed. Sometimes people are diagnosed with Alzheimer's first and it's switched to Lewy body dementia later. One of the telltale signs of Lewy body dementia is hallucinations. So to clear up, because this stuff is very confusing, believe me, the way they're diagnosing right now is predominantly by putting together, they don't have a biomarker, there's no cerebral spinal fluid or blood test yet, or PET scan. They are working on those possibilities. What they are able to do, it's simply by deduction, by piecing together, okay, do they, again, of these symptoms that they know of, and there's just not a lot of awareness out there. Again, our situation is it's more common than not. However, now people are starting to get diagnosed while they're alive, which is better. Because in my book, we would have loved a diagnosis.
Again, I guess I'm just supporting how important it is to get a diagnosis so that people can get what help is out there. It can't be cured, but getting some support around the symptoms is really helpful.
Yeah, and I might not be the natural one to go first on this, but I will say in terms of making this film, that was the thing that after talking to everyone and really understanding Susan's story, that was the thing that I came away with, is this is an incurable disease. This was always going to end in some way that was distasteful, but a diagnosis would have changed everything. And Susan and Robin have this beautiful view out of the back of their house over the water. And I have this image in my mind of if they'd have been able to get that diagnosis, they could have sat there together, they could have held hands, they could have looked out and thought about, what's the rest of this look like for us, and how can we stay together through this. And so the thing that you hear Susan sort of going over and understanding, I think more and more now, is the idea of like, that would have freed Robin, right? The idea that he didn't get that diagnosis kept him in a bit of a prison of, maybe I can fix this, maybe this is my fault. So that's the thing, that we don't need a cure, at least for this film, to have ended differently. It's just the idea that at least Robin's story could have been much different if somebody would have said, like, let's run this test or that test, or it could be this, and got a bit closer to freeing him up from that prison of thinking that he could just work his way out of this, which is a really tough way to have things end, I think.
I just want to say from the science side on that as well, is when you have a diagnosis, then that starts bringing more data to the scientists. They need something to work with, and that means getting accurate diagnosis while someone is alive. And it's huge for many reasons, and it puts the power back in the people who actually have the disease. Then it gives them their power back by knowing what it is. Then they have the choice what to do with what time they have left with their loved ones and their families, and that's everything.
I wanted to thank all of you for being here, particularly Tylor for making this film and Susan Williams for participating in it and for being with us.
Can I take a moment and just acknowledge a few people?
Oh, please do.
Because what was great is, so
Please.
this was sort of a sneak peek of the film, and it was a great opportunity for the people who made the film to be here. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, the producer of the film, Ben Sinclair, is here. The sound mixer, Dylan Hurley's here. Aaron Drake, who composed the film, is here. And some of the people who generously donated to the film are here. And also we even have Stanley Wilson is in the audience tonight, which is really special. And he brought a few people from Juilliard who went to school with Robin, which is like, this is a great group to be with. And yeah.
And to add on to that, I don't know if anyone got to see at the end of the film, but we had our consulting partners who we're so extremely grateful for. the Michael J. Fox Foundation, the Parkinson's Foundation, the American Brain Foundation. Who else? There's like 5. Oh my God.
I thought you had it. I was tuned out.
Okay, Lewy Body Dementia Association and LBD. I always mess it up.
It's easier to say it than
I know
remember.
everybody has a hard time with our name, so I'm going to say it loud and clear that we're the Resource Center.
Yes.
We're the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center, and we're the only one in New York, so I'm saying that again. And thank you.